In terms of strategy, obviously, business is going to have quite complex strategies. They cascade down from the group. They have to deal with a number of circumstances, and that can change. However, generally, we have two core bits of strategy here. One actually does cascade down from group, which is about innovative technologies, providing solutions to customers to drive the business forward. And that's the business of science, but it is the business. It has to be commercially meaningful. It has to be actually driven by market demand. It's very easy for a technology-driven company full of technologists, of which I'm one as well, to develop things, then try and look for somebody to sell it to. And that's where we've been a long time ago. But the business of science, about innovation, technology driven by market need, is certainly core to it. The other part of the strategy is essentially this, and a number of companies use this lab to fab. So what that actually means for us is you have solutions, whether it be products or processes for the research marketplace, which we're pretty much a market leader in, and you grow that, and that's a solid piece of the business which we want to maintain and grow. But then some of those customers essentially are in research to actually research materials or processes that then develop products to get into production. And that moves from a lab to a fab, a fabrication line environment. And part of the strategy is to move with selected customers where we can provide the solutions they need through development and into production. So this kind of lab to fab and balancing the needs of research and production in the business. In essence, they haven't really changed at all in the broad sense. Innovation, technology, what's called voice of customer, being market driven is all kind of good stuff. It's been around and it makes a lot of sense. So it doesn't necessarily have to change. And lab to fab was a strategy when I joined, although I don't think anybody actually said those words, but that's what the company did. What's really changed actually is what needs to happen to actually engage that strategy with the customers. The R&D customers, even the more academically based customers, actually have needs now which are much closer to 10 years ago what would have been a fab. So they're interested in cost of ownership, they're interested in a service contract because their PhD students are too busy actually doing the work because they get funding from industry, probably more so than governments. And even the government funding is usually aimed at, well, actually you want to get to a product and have an end user who's actually going to buy something at the end of it. So they are generally much more commercially driven in our field for research, which drives them to think, well, actually, I want value from the product and it has to work all the time and it needs to do X, Y, and Z, which is where the production guys are coming from. So the lab to fab strategy doesn't change as a top line, but actually what's underneath it, and that needs to happen to make it work, actually has changed quite a lot. I mean, there's a number of issues there. There is this change over the years of, well, the research customer isn't some academic who is quite happy to potter around and fix his own tool. I mean, they do exist, but they're kind of more rare now. So you have to change how you're actually implementing the business strategy to actually provide what the customers need. And that's a challenge in itself. There's balance within that strategy of you supply research customers, you supply production customers. Research customers actually don't really mind if you supply production customers. Production customers look at you if you supply research, say, well, you're a research supplier, you're not really a production customer. So the real challenge for us now, more so than ever before, is how do you actually keep your R&D marketplace, but how do you grow the production marketplace as well and keep and satisfy both? And that's a real complexity within the business. It's a real strength because you do get this from lab to fab. And there's actually a number of companies that found it very difficult to not do the research and lab bit, then get into production because they haven't had the background of running the process and the customers. So there's a value to it, but it's actually a real difficult thing to do well.